Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our fourth annual DEIA Day, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Day. I'm making it a point to not just say DEIA anymore, but really say all the words of today's event. So April is DEIA month, and so we have been very intentional at this institution of acknowledging DEIA month and then adding DEIA Day. I know I just said I wasn't going to say DEIA anymore. I have to train myself. Yeah, thank you. But the reason, I mean, there's so many reasons why today and an event like today is so important. Oh, before I get started, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Martha McDonald. I'm the Vice President for Student Services at this amazing institution. So welcome. I want to just acknowledge the fact that our president is really one of the main reasons why we have a day like today, because of his leadership. And so without further ado, please welcome Dr. John Hernandez.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald, and good morning, buenos dias. Has the coffee kicked in? Thank you so much for being here. Fourth annual. These are the traditions that maybe when it becomes 20th annual, like you take it for granted, and then you forget the history because so many of us come and go and what have you. But it's so important that the President's Advisory Committee on Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility made a commitment to sponsor this event, just a few years back. And it's just an honor to once again be in community and to be in this space. Thank you for taking time to be here. Dr. McDonald started touching on it, but, why are we having a day like this? And to your point, there's so many reasons, but of all the years for us to set time and space to acknowledge diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility is more important than ever given the current political landscape. And it is an opportunity for us to reframe and own and change the narrative that is out there, I would say twisted narrative, that is making DEI almost seem like affirmative action and minimizing the impact of what this truly stands for to somehow imply unfair hiring practices. I was inspired by a reel on Instagram, I know, very contagious, isn't it? By former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. And then I took what he shared and asked ChatGPT, what is the opposite of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility? And it almost mirrored, maybe he used ChatGPT, I don't know, almost mirrored in content what he shared. And I want to share it with you. That the opposite of that would be a system or an environment that is characterized by uniformity rather than diversity, where everyone is expected to conform to a narrow set of perceptions, beliefs, backgrounds, identities with limited representation. A system like that would be characterized by inequity rather than equity, where resources, opportunities, outcomes, including student outcomes, are distributed unfairly, often favoring one group over others. A system like that would be characterized by exclusion rather than inclusion, where certain individuals or groups are intentionally or systematically left out of decision-making, opportunities, and community engagement. And a couple years ago, we made the intentional decision to add accessibility to our work, and a system like that would be characterized by inaccessibility rather than accessibility, where our physical environments, our services, the information, the way we relay that, are not designed to be usable by people with disabilities or those with varying needs, effectively shutting out participation. I've often used the metaphor, because it was so true in my own lived experience, of the importance of creating space at the table, and not just a place, but a voice at the table for every one of us. And so the goal is to ensure that. And at IVC, I believe that we have made it an intentional value within our culture, our institutional culture. It's embedded in our mission statement and in all the things that we do. And so that commitment isn't just something we put on a web page. It is lived, and it requires that each and every one of us continuously listen, reflect, learn, and take action. And that's why we're here today. So I appreciate that you have taken the time, not to check a box, but because you want to engage in your own learning and development, to reflect, to grow, and to figure out for ourselves within our spheres of influence what action we can take. So I just want to, with that, say that we're in for a treat today. Dynamic program starting with our keynote speaker, Ruben Canedo, who will be introduced. So happy to see you, Ruben, and just appreciate the work that you're doing, particularly statewide leadership roles in support of basic needs for our students. We're going to get to hear from our students, to hear their lived experiences that really reminds us of our why and why we do this work. And then through interactive activities and I hope meaningful discussions, we're going to continue to explore ways where we can be intentional and conscious about creating an environment where every voice is celebrated and every perspective counts. So with that, I also want to give my gratitude to the tri-chairs that you're going to meet now. You already met Dr. Martha McDonald, Rebecca Beck, and Julie Scholl. And then all of our speakers, facilitators, panelists. I want to also welcome those that are live streaming through Zoom. We've learned through the pandemic that if we want to reach a wider audience, this is the way to do it. And I want to acknowledge and thank that setup there, 11 computers. It is a complex system that was required because this space is not set up for that. So thank you to each of you for your engagement and the time it took to set this up. Because if we're talking about accessibility, having full access to this venue and this space and this content and this conversation was really important to us. So let's make today a day of learning, reflection, and action. So bienvenidos and welcome to DEIA Day.
Thank you, President Hernandez. I loved how you closed your message today, making this a day of action, reflection, and what was the third word? Listen, grow. Okay, thank you. I was listening. With me today, so we are the tri-chairs of the President's Advisory Council on Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility. And we're truly honored, I am truly honored to work with these two amazing leaders, ladies, and so intentional about the work that we do together. I also want to, first of all, thank the committee that put this day together. It always takes a village, as you can see, and so We have Julie Scholl, who's representing our classified professionals, and then our amazing Academic Senate President, Rebecca Beck. But in addition to that, can the individuals that helped with today's event for the committee please stand up? I see Professor Summers. Yes, Angela, Harmony. Thank you, Candy, our student representative, and Maria and Vanessa in the back. Thank you all for your help and support in putting today together. It wouldn't have been possible. As I mentioned earlier, this is our fourth DEIA Day, and this year we decided that we wanted to focus on the A, on accessibility, and that's what today's learning is all about. So truly excited. I don't want to take up too much time because I really want us to hear from our speaker, Julie. And Julie, if you want to say a few words, and then Rebecca will close us out at the end of the day.
Hi, everybody. Welcome today. Mainly, I wanted to highlight that we have an amazing group of students here with us. So thank you so much, students, for being here today. We're really excited that you're here to participate. So thank you for being here. And without further ado, let's get the day started. Thank you. Also, since we're accessibility, I would like to just describe myself. I am a woman with shorter brown hair, about shoulder length. I'm wearing a brown blazer. And again, welcome.
Thank you all for being here. As Dr. McDonald said, you'll hear from me in the closing, but also since I'm speaking, I am a 53-year-old woman, curly hair, brown, wearing a light blue jacket. And again, because of our visually impaired friends, we were asked to be accessible in that regard. And so that is something I'm going to continue doing as I have learned. Thank you to our DSPS experts. Age.
I'm also a woman. I'm wearing a, I don't know, what would you call this? Orangey, burnt orange blazer. I have short, dark brown hair, and I am a woman of a certain age. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce and give you a little background on our speaker. And again, thank you to the DSPS team for recommending this amazing speaker you're going to hear from today. He grew up in a mixed status and binational family with a disabled body introduced to him in an early age um, to harm, trauma, injustice, and oppression. And most importantly, it taught him how brilliant, resilient, loving, and transformative our family and community relationships are. He survived and is here today because of family and community. Growing up, everyone would take care of each other to make sure folks had food, shelter, and community. And so they believe in a world that will learn and heal beyond its current white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, and ableism. And the way that they contribute to that direction is through our basic needs efforts. So please help me welcome our speaker today, Ruben.
Good morning, everyone. The last time that I was at we did a retreat and we also did that exercise of describing ourselves. But the exercise was playful with like some Afrofuturism. So it was like, if you were a superhero, how would you describe yourself? But include like present time. And nobody wanted to say their age either, so that's why I was laughing too. So you never know. Okay, y'all. So my name is Ruben. I use he, they pronouns. I am going to facilitate multiple portions of the experience today. I'm going to do an opening framing for some of the experiences that are going to happen today and things that we want to be intentional about bringing top of mind, top of heart, top of body, top of spirit. And then at the end of the day, I'm also going to do a facilitation to help us bring things together and then make sure that people leave energized. I don't know how many of y'all have ever been to invitations of this nature. and then at the end of the day, you just leave exhausted. I don't want that to happen. I want the opposite to happen. Um, and I'll get into that today. So the conversation today is going to be an intro and an application of intersectional justice. It's going to include disability, but it's also going to bring in healing and transformative justice. How many of y'all have been to a training on disability justice prior to today? Raise your hand or otherwise signify. We have a couple folks. How many of you have done a training on healing justice and healing justice frameworks or practices? Beautiful. And then how many of y'all have done a transformative justice training? Yes, some of us? Okay. Has anybody been in an all three space? No? Okay, beautiful. Great. We're all good to play today. We're gonna kick off. I always start with gratitude. So thank you all so much, everybody that invited me today, folks that nominated, folks that lifted, folks that were willing to invite me to be in the space. Thank you for modeling, saying thank you to our folks that put in all the work before we get here. And then can we also say thank you to the people that fed us, the farm workers, the people that cooked, the people that brought the food. I hope everybody got nourished in ways that were accessible to you, but I love the energy and the vibes that we got going on here. So I'm really grateful and honored to be in this space. I was just thinking, I don't think I've ever been to a college that's next to a golf club. So that was interesting because I come from the Coachella Valley and there's golf clubs everywhere there, but I don't think I had ever been next to a place that had a golf club next to the college itself. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a vibe. So I like to share with folks unapologetically that I am a nerd and I love books. And just because you finish your degrees and you have careers doesn't mean that you need to stop reading. And it doesn't mean that you need to stop learning and that you can learn things that maybe are aligned with your role. But I hope that you're reading things that expand your imagination and possibilities. Does that make sense to folks? And if reading is not something that we enjoy, maybe it could be a podcast or a documentary, but get out of the cycle of the 24-hour news cycle and you're just perpetually activating your nervous systems. Y'all with me so far? So that's my way of modeling the books that I read this last summer that I was intentional about reading in the summer. And then I'm giving myself this academic year to continue to reread and apply. Because I think it's also overwhelming where you're just like reading, and you don't give yourself time to like process and to practice and to have conversations with people. Does that make sense to folks? So my goal as a practice is to read 3 to 4 books every summer and then give myself the academic year to be in discussion with them and share with other people and see who else wants to read them and have conversations and interact with them. So my 4 books that I want to put on your radar, I'm not getting paid by any of these authors, by the way. This is just me being a nerd. So number 1 is Matthew Desmond. The book is called Poverty by America. Matthew won the Pulitzer Prize for his last book. It's called Evicted. I don't know how many of y'all heard about it, but it's the largest sociological study on the housing crisis and eviction in the United States. He got all the awards, all the way up to the Pulitzer. No one's talking about his new book at that level, because this book is now making the connection that after you get a whole PhD in sociology and you study poverty and you study housing, and then you realize that actually poverty is not inevitable, we're choosing it as a policy and as a priority, and you do a book dedicated to saying this country is making poverty, and this is the way that we get out of that. And the final chapter calls for the abolition of poverty in the United States and explains to you how to do that. For some reason, folks were not as excited about that book. If you don't have time to read that whole book, you don't need to read the whole book. He is a professor. I feel like there is like an unspoken rule of professors that the first and last chapter of anything that you do is supposed to summarize everything. So just read the last chapter and you'll read the book. If y'all enjoy humor and satire, he just did an interview with Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, and it's fantastic. And the unedited version is on YouTube as well. just so that there's different accessibility points of engaging with the materials. Community colleges are absolutely essential in the intervention to break cycles of poverty. And he talks about them. So that's why I also want to affirm that for you all, that there's other people in other fields that are affirming how essential it is for us to have public higher education, and that community college is the largest location of that effort. Y'all with me so far? The second thing is leading with dignity. Donna Hicks is the understudy of Desmond Tutu, who was the leader of South Africa's reconciliation project. After that, she travels the world and facilitates similar reconciliation efforts, and then finds herself getting invited to Harvard and does a book called Dignity, which is the reflections and the lessons of global conflict resolution. She never imagined that people outside of the global conflict resolution community would read her book. Then she started getting letters and requests to write a book that wasn't about that work, but a more general application of dignity and how do you lead with dignity. So she writes this book that is called Leading with Dignity. I invite y'all to that book because I don't think that we all mean the same thing when we say dignity. And I don't think we all mean the same thing when we say diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility. So I'm being a student of who are the people who are deep diving some of these values, terms, and concepts so that I can ask myself, what does dignity mean to me? And how am I embodying it in the everyday spaces that I'm in? Y'all with me so far? I love this book also because there's an offering of what are the core tenets of dignity, and then what are the things that you also need to be aware that is not dignity, and you may be practicing both. Does that make sense to y'all? So I love that invitation. The third one is what it takes to heal. That's Prentice, who was one of the co-founders of the launch point of the Black Lives Matter movement, and reflects on how the Black Lives Matter movement talked about healing and intentional conversations that you can be doing social justice work, but if you're not doing it in healing ways, you will re-traumatize people doing that work and you create just as much harm. Y'all with me so far? Just because you chose an area that is social justice driven does not mean that you're showing up in healthy ways to do it in healthy manners. If I ask you all, we all work in a public sector. But I'm pretty sure at some point you had an experience that wasn't the healthiest that could have happened. And sometimes you've been on the receiving end of that, and sometimes you've been on the giving end of that. That's normal. That's humans being humans. But are you intentional about repairing? And are you intentional about resetting? And are you intentional about making those moments be learning moments to build from? Because if so, then everybody here, as you go through your career trajectory, you would be getting healthier and wiser and have more capacity to do the work that you're doing. So if at the end of your days, and then at the end of your weeks, and then at the end of your month, and then at the end of every academic year, you're absolutely exhausted and drained, something is not right in the equation of how you're taking care of yourself and how you're taking care of others and what we're doing in our field. Does that make sense to folks? So that's the invitation to learn how do we practice some of those things, which is fantastic because they are very honest about what happened to the Black Lives Matter movement Gen 1 that imploded it, and why the Healing Justice Director, which is Prentice, was like, I'm out. This is not sustainable for me and I gotta go somewhere else. Y'all with me? The last one is Loving Corrections. That's Adrienne Marie Brown. Adrienne is the author of Emergent Strategies. If y'all have not read Emergent Strategies, that's book 1 of the Emergent Strategy series. I encourage y'all to read Emergent Strategies. That is the strategies that have been used by women, queer, indigenous, environmental justice, and labor rights movements that shared with Adrienne what are ways that we can do relationships and organizing and campaigns in better ways. So there's a core tendency of that. Like, for example, in that work, as they started doing that work, they arrived at this is their last book, Now they're going to go become a sci-fi author, which I think is amazing. You need to know when you're done and go do something else. Loving corrections is the final offering that says, we're not unlearning, we're not repairing, and we're not creating cultures and conditions when people can make mistakes, learn from them, and keep getting better. Y'all with me so far? People are so terrified of making mistakes in the workplace or in organizing spaces. You're terrified of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, providing the wrong example. And that fear is getting in the way of us doing the work that needs to get done. Y'all with me so far? I don't know how many of you all, actually, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna ask you the next question. Those are gifts. Read if you want to, audiobook them if you want to, be in conversation if you want to. I'm just pointing you in the direction of some amazing books that have been helpful for me. This slide deck is gonna be made available to you all, okay? So don't feel any pressure to be taking photos or notes, or if that's your vibe. Okay, here we go. Every time that I facilitate in any space, I've been doing this for the last 18 years of me facilitating and giving keynotes and trainings all over the place. It's very important to me to ask who's in the room. So I'm going to ask y'all some questions, and then I want y'all to either raise your hand or otherwise signify whatever is accessible to you. Everybody ready? So the first question is, how many of us grew up with one parent or no parents? Raise your hand or otherwise signify. Look around this room if you're able to, and then put your hands down if you're able to raise it. How many of us growing up experienced either poverty, hunger, and or housing challenges? Raise your hand or otherwise signify. Look around this room, put your hands down. How many of us experienced a severe medical challenge growing up? Whatever that means to you, however that lands to you, bless you, put your hands down. How many of us experienced growing up or are currently living with one or more disabilities, either visible or non-visible? Beautiful.
Yeah, okay.
How many of us experience either migration or immigration at some point growing up? Raise your hand or otherwise signify. Beautiful. Put your hands down. How many of us needed financial aid or work to make our way through college, whenever that was for you? Look around this room if you're able to. Put your hands down. How many of us are the first ones in our families to graduate from a 4-year college or university in the United States? Look around this room if you're able to. Put your hands down. And then lastly, how many of us are the first ones to graduate from an advanced degree in the United States? Raise your hand or otherwise signify. Look around this room. Beautiful. And now the last question is, how many of us at any point in time put your hands up or identified affirmingly in any one of these questions? Put your hands up. Look around this room if you're able to. For those of us unable to look in this room, the majority of the room has their hands up right now. Why do I start with this exercise? I encourage you all to make sure that in the teams that you are a part of, the projects that you are a part of, you do not take for granted who's in the room, and that you check the assumptions that you are making of who's in the room with you. It is absolutely essential for us to recognize that historically, higher education was designed for the wealthiest and whitest people in our society in the United States that were predominantly male. So if you're in this room right now, and if you are white, wealthy, and male, especially if you're cis heterosexual, all of this was the imagination of your ancestors and you belonging in a place like this. Everybody else that is not white, wealthy, and cis heterosexual male, you are a change agent in the entire landscape of higher education. Does that make sense to you? And because we are in a community college, by very definition, this is the system changing location of that original conceptualization of who should go to college. Y'all with me so far? If we are not treating each other in that way, then we got to go to therapy. And you got to go deal with some traumas and some challenging belief systems and some false narratives that are limiting us embracing and becoming whole with one another. Does that make sense, y'all? Sorry, I'm just gonna. The literal president of this institution is not a white, wealthy, multi-generationally wealthy, cis heterosexual male of the original conceptualization. So if at the leadership level, you all have successfully transitioned who is in that role and who's in that leadership role and who's in your academic community and who is your staff and who is your students, and you're not waking up with that celebratory energy that you are part of a transformative change in society, and what you're waking up with is like, I get well, I don't want to go to work today. Girl, you got to eat differently. You got to sleep differently. You got to exercise and move that body in ways that are accessible to you. You got to celebrate the fact that you are the literal realization of multiple generational social movements for you to be here today. And if that is not the energy that you are checking into and in the frequency to show up here, whatever you all call it, some of y'all call it school, some of y'all call it work, some of y'all call it your career, some of y'all call it your purpose, then we got to work there. Y'all with me so far? Does that resonate with folks? I don't want anybody to feel scolded. I'm just waking your ass up. Because there's a whole lot of stuff that's going on in the world that needs that kind of combative energy. It's not here. You are surrounded by people who already at a value level have chosen to be here. And if this doesn't resonate with y'all, we also need to support each other to help you go find where you will feel that way. Because you don't got to be here. You can go get a job somewhere else that does make you feel that way. Does that make sense to folks? I'm just trying to make sure that you're waking up to your like ideal life. That's it. Y'all with me? So the who's in the room is a lot deeper than just how many of us have lived the same traumas. This is not a trauma checklist. It has taken a whole lot for us to be here today. And we got to hold ourselves accountable that present generations and future ones have healthier and better experiences. This is where in the church you say amen. And if you don't go to church, I don't know what you say wherever you go, but say what you got to say. Y'all with me so far? Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. I don't even go to church, but I know y'all be doing that. Don't knock on church, or let's not open that conversation. My mom's indigenous. That's all I got to say. Okay, so intersectional justice. Y'all ready? Oh, y'all ready? So whatever your modalities are of taking notes, mental, written, phone, whatever you want to do, I want to make sure that you feel that you're welcome to do so. And again, I'm reminding you, I'm going to send this to you. All of you are going to have access to it. The team already has access to the direct link for this. So number one, why intersectional justice? I told you that I'm a book nerd. I'm going to give you all the books that I read to get here, but I'm also going to give you the things that you need. The Politics of Trauma is a fantastic book of generative somatics. Badass, powerful, majority women that have led social movements came together to write this book. You're gonna learn about the labor movement, agricultural movements, the sex worker rights. You're gonna talk about economic justice, et cetera, et cetera. But specifically, how did they use generative somatics, which is the acknowledgement that we have a body. And that body comes from generational makeups. And in that body, if you're not intentional about taking care of your body, you're not going to have the capacity to do the work that you need to do. Does that make sense to folks? All of you know that if you wake up and you wake up with a stomach ache, and that stomach ache stays with you the entire day, you're not performing at your best. Does that make sense to y'all? All of y'all know that if you're in the gym or wherever you go and you move and you fracture your elbow, your entire body adapts to the fact that now you have a cast and you can't move your left elbow if you had mobility before. Does that make sense to folks? It is a very clear understanding. I just fractured something. I'm not gonna go curl in the gym the next day. I'm fractured. But we don't understand that from a place of emotions. We don't understand that from the place of politics, and we don't understand that from the place of spirituality. Does that make sense, y'all? Somatics is the connection that we are in an ecosystem, and we need to be intentional about that. Y'all with me? So what I like to pull from here is if we do not understand if we don't understand and integrate, the shaping power of institutions, social norms, economic systems, oppression, and privilege alongside the profound influences of family and community, we will not fully understand trauma or how to heal from it. We will not understand how to prevent it. I love this offering as an invitation because if you don't have time to read the book, this is what we're landing at. There's so much trauma porn that's going on out. That's like a word of saying like everybody's sensationalizing trauma. Does that make sense, y'all? Everything is trauma, trauma, trauma. Like you missed the entire point. If your conversations are only trauma centered and you're not getting to the healing and the prevention, you stopped at the beginning of the marathon that you said you were signing up for. Y'all with me so far? We have to get to the point of helping folks understand the healing aspect so that we can get to the prevention aspect of it. Y'all with me so far? So number one, disability justice. Why is disability justice essential? Because we need to acknowledge the fact that at all times, we are all experiencing the spaces that we are in, the paces that we are moving in, and the senses that we have access to in unique ways. Y'all with me so far? Space, pace, senses. And in turn, we are either being intentional about facilitating experiences of belonging and dignity, or we're intentionally or unintentionally not allowing people to be in their belonging and their dignity. Does that make sense, y'all? Some of you all, when you showed up today, there was never a question for you about whether or not you belong in this space. Some of you all, there's never been a question about your dignity being honored in the space. Others may had some moments of belonging and may had some moments of dignity. That's just normal, y'all. But are we being intentional about it? Y'all with me so far? Like for example, some of you, man, where are my morning people? How many of y'all are morning people? Raise your hand or otherwise signify if you're a morning person. I could tell y'all have been smiling from the beginning. How many of us are not morning people? Okay. Now, those of us who are not morning people, how many of y'all would be feeling better if we would have started today at 11 a.m.? Look around this room. I'm asking you that because it's an accessible way for me to ask y'all how simple it is for us to have a disability justice awareness. Because in the RSVP of our events, if we ask, yo, are you a morning person? And if they say like, no, and the majority of your RSVP is telling you I'm not a morning person, what are we doing here at 7:30 in the morning? Now your president is coming out here hella inspiring, and you're like not even awake. Does that make sense, y'all? It is a lot more accessible to do accessibility and to ensure the disability justice of our communities, and in turn have a better experience than what we have been lied to, that it is the opposite. Does that make sense, y'all? It's kind of like how in capitalism, people have come to believe that doing organic goods are more expensive than non-organic. What? Not doing something to food makes it more expensive? That's a whole other conversation. Healing justice. If you understand that at all times we are all experiencing spaces and paces and senses differently, you also have to understand that our bodies are made up by different experiences. Y'all with me so far? Healing justice reminds us that we are all have a DNA coded into our system. And that DNA is coming with lessons and wisdoms, not just trauma. Y'all with me so far? Some of y'all love chocolate. Immediately, I say chocolate and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of y'all do not like chocolate. Some of y'all don't like chocolate at all. That's okay. Some of y'all like or don't like chocolate because of what you have tried. Some of y'all like or don't like chocolate because of what the person that birthed you tried. And some of y'all like or don't like chocolate because of what was done to the person that birthed you related to chocolate. Does that make sense to y'all? And we're just talking about chocolate. That's like level 1. But we can talk about other stuff. Like some of you have experiences with male presenting people. Some of you have experiences with female presenting people. Some of you have experiences with people whose voices naturally are very high volume. And you're like, oh, that's my mom. That person loves me because they talk to me so loud. Some of y'all are the complete opposite of that experience. Does that make sense? So some of us show up to work and we're like hyped and ready to go. And you all take that as like, hell yeah, we're going to have a great day. Some of y'all, you get that energy, you're like, what the hell's your problem? My mom don't even talk to me that way. Does that make sense, y'all? Y'all with me so far? If you are not aware of those experiences that live inside of you, and you're not being intentional about having agency over your experience in a healing way, you are compromising your own experience, and you do not get to say, well, it's because I'm a child and no one is helping me. You're not a child no more. I want you to have agency over that. For some of y'all, that's therapy. For some of y'all, that's healing circles. For some of y'all, that's a coach. Does that make sense? Whatever learning space you want to go to, I'm encouraging you to go somewhere where it is not your sole responsibility to figure all of that out. That's too much. Everybody good? And third is this transformative justice. We got the disability justice. We got the healing justice. Now transformative is to say, we acknowledge that harm is part of the human experience. Does that make sense, y'all? Y'all with me? That's just what happens. Some of you are parents, you harm your children intentionally, unintentionally. Sometimes your children harm your ass intentionally and unintentionally. That's a child. They don't even know, but they harm you. I was with my cousin this weekend, and my little baby niece was like, damn, mommy, you're looking a little different. And she knew what a little different meant. It meant that she went out to go buy groceries and she did do her hair and she was looking a mess and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, damn, if I would have told my mom you're looking like a mess, I would have been a smack. And she just looked at me like, these kids, man. I'm like, I get it. I get it. And then I got pinched. I'm like, why am I pinching? Why are you pinching me? Because I can't pinch her. I'm like, oh, happy to be of service, you know? Transformative justice is the acknowledgement that we need to address the harm, y'all, and uproot it without causing harm. That the conditions are addressed in such a way where harm continuously gets prevented and minimized. Y'all with me so far? The invitation here is, imagine if all of us found a way of, in the daily practice, asking ourselves, am I practicing disability justice? Am I practicing healing justice? Am I practicing transformative justice? And notice how I say, am I practicing? Because you never get perfect at this. The intention is that at some point you become a black belt and you know how to do everything perfectly. There's no such thing. It is an invitation in that we are consciously aware of what needs to be the framework and the containers that we create to have those commitments with each other. Does that make sense to folks? Beautiful. Now, the case study here is I'm going to make myself the case study. I am a case study of these frameworks because I need to acknowledge the fact that I come from the privilege of being a binational family. My parents met in Mexico City. They went to college and university down there. They went to UNAM. UNAM is like a Research One institution that is absolutely massive. So massive that it's an entire city is called Ciudad Universitaria. That's how many people are in there. There's over 200,000 students in one university. That's why when people are like, oh my God, you work at such a large institution, I'm like, I do. But I was born sick and I couldn't breathe. And Mexico City is one of the highest cities and most polluted cities in the world. So when your baby is born with multiple disabilities, it uproots your family and you go somewhere else to seek health and medical support. Does that make sense to folks? So disability justice wasn't a choice for me. I was born into it. And I also acknowledge that if it hadn't been for the loving care and the commitment of my parents, I wouldn't have made it past my childhood. Once we come to the US seeking medical support and I survived my childhood, now we find ourselves in a place where my parents don't speak the language, but they want me to go to college the way that they went to college in Mexico. That just makes sense. Y'all with me? But we didn't know what we were doing. We depended 100% on the education community, meaning that if I didn't have the teachers that I had and the AVID programs and the EAOPs and the Imperial Valley Colleges, which is hilarious because when I got your email about come to IVC, I was like, why aren't you just calling me? Everybody in IVC has my cell phone number. I was like, oh, there's a different IVC. Is the Irvine? Oh, we gotta get better at our names. So now to me is I'm finding myself living a reality where a kid can be born with multiple disabilities, uproot their entire family, go to a different country, speak a different language, be immersed and supported by all of these programs and services that took my entire childhood and adulthood. And now I'm finding myself with these degrees that allow me to do work, not just in the state of California, but I'm traveling all across the country and international doing this work. None of that is possible without people like you in this room. So from the very beginning of my trajectory, everything that I just told you, disability justice, healing justice, transformative justice, was absolutely essential for me to be here today. Y'all with me so far? Because when I start talking about these frameworks and these interventions, sometimes people think like, oh, that's really abstract or like that's really theoretical. I'm like, no, 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 that's life. And if something is coming up for you that is pushing against you wanting to believe that if you practice disability justice, there will be more dignity and belonging in the spaces. If something is getting in your way of understanding that healing justice is essential for you to release some of that generational trauma and harm and tap into more of the generational wisdom and love and care, and if something is getting in the way of you believing that transformative justice is important to uproot conditions of harm and leave places better, then that lets you know the environments that you have been around that are making you believing things that are betraying your own well-being. Y'all with me? So now what we're going to get into is we're going to get into the first community practice. There's going to be multiple practice points here. This is just my opening so that hopefully this helps you all start reflecting and being intentional, because the day today is dedicated not just to learning and unlearning, y'all, but practice. Y'all with me so far? This is also my hack for all of my non-morning people. I gave you a whole lot of time for you to start waking up. And for my morning people, I feel your energy of like, where's he going? Where are we getting to? What are we going to do? So now we are all here. It is 9:25 a.m. Everybody good? All right, here we go. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to do dyads. Folks out there, folks in here, those of us that don't know what dyads are, you're going to pair with one person. Dyads is how we practice healthy communication. All of us come from different communication backgrounds. Some of you, if I go to your home as a child and growing up, it would be silent. There's no noise in your home. And your parents talk to you almost like whisper tone. Some of us grew up in households where that shit was a concert. And every room had different music playing. And then you would just hear one single scream, the come eat sign of your family. I don't know what your come eat sign of your family is, but then everybody descends in the dinner table. And then it's like chaos now of all of those personalities at the dinner table. Y'all with me in the spectrum of communication? And because that is present in every room that we are in, we have to be intentional about healthy communication. What are the core tenets of healthy communication? One person listens, the other person speaks or communicates in whatever modality you communicate in. You're going to partner with one person. Each of you is going to get 2 minutes to share from the prompt that I'm going to come up here. Y'all with me so far? We're going to do 4 dyads today. This is just the first one. We're going to do one more, and then we're going to break because we're going to go into the next item of the agenda. And then at the end of the day, when we bring it back, you're going to have a processing diet and a decompression diet. Does that make sense to y'all? I'm so excited to teach you decompression. Some of you already know what's coming, but if you don't know what decompression is, oh my God, your body's going to be so happy. Everybody ready? The diet is this. What is coming up for you in this moment? And what do you want to experiment with or practice from intersectional justice learnings today? I'm going to start preparing you. Y'all with me? So look to your left, look to your right, whoever it is that you want to partner with today. I hope that you sat next to somebody that you don't know as well, but if you're sitting next to a homie, what are you doing there? You should be sitting next to somebody that you don't know because you're building community today, okay? Do me a favor. Let's not waste too much time. Just partner with whoever is most accessible to you, okay? That you can communicate with. Is anybody in a weird location where there's nobody next to you? Raise your hand so that we can find you a partner. If you can hear my voice and you do not have a partner, can you raise your hand if you do not have a partner or otherwise signify? Who needs a partner? You want to come up here to the front? Oh, perfect. You need a partner too? Okay. Right here, these two? Does everybody else have a partner? You want to come over here with me? They need a partner, right? Beautiful. Come right here. Can I sit right here? All right, y'all. Here we go. You want to stay seated? You can go to the back and stand up if you want to, whatever's most accessible. Now listen to the instructions, okay? One of you, it has to be partner 1. So look at each other and decide who's going to be partner 1, okay? Don't talk, just say you partner 1, I partner 1, or negotiate a little bit if it's not an immediate, like 1. Everybody good on my partner 1s? Yes? My partner 1s are going to listen first. Why? Because partner 1s tend to be either the extroverts, the communicatives, or the ones that need to think out loud. That's not practice if you just do what you always do. You're going to listen first. And then my partner 2s tend to be my introverts. Oh my God, you go first. I don't know what I want to say yet, so somebody say something else so that I can say something after the fact and be like, yo, I agree. That's not practice if you go second. You're going to go first. Y'all with me so far? Yeah, I've been doing this for 18 years, and every time that I do this, it's the same thing. I don't know what it is about human psychology. That's just what we do. Okay, so here we go, y'all. You get 2 minutes. Very simple. We're just getting going. What's coming up for you as you were receiving intersectional justice? How did your body feel? What thoughts were coming to mind? Did you start thinking about people? Did you start thinking about experiences? Did you start getting curious? Or did you notice an aversion and you were like, nah, this is some BS? All of that invited into the sharing. Y'all with me so far? Partners 2, you get to go first. I'm going to put my timer for 2 minutes. Ready? 3, 2, 1, begin. You got 30 seconds. Ten seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's time. Wrap up that offering. If you can hear my voice, look at your partner and share, thank you so much for listening and partnering with me. Now you look at your partner and say, thank you so much for sharing with me and partnering with me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing all of the gratitude. And now, if you feel comfortable, give each other a little somatic gift, handshake, high five, fist bump, hip bump, whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, okay. Now the next partner gets to go. Ready? 3, 2, 1, begin. Thirty seconds. 10, 5, 3, 2, and 1. That's time. If you can hear my voice, wrap up that offering. Bless you. If you can hear my voice, start bringing it back. All my number twos that started first, do you see how number ones take longer to wrap up? Number ones, do you see why we never start with you all? That's just human psychology. I don't know why, but it's beautiful though. We got to have our talkers and we got to have our listeners. But that's why we practice different roles. Okay, now for this round, thank your partner for partnering with you, and thank your partner for sharing with you, and give each other a little somatic high five, hip bump, whatever it is that y'all get into. Okay. Come back to your seats if you would like to, or stay where you are. We're gonna move to the next portion. Where I'm getting y'all ready to transition to our student panel. And then remember that at the end of the day, we're gonna do 2 exercises for everything that's gonna come up in the day, and to make sure that we're gonna take care of yourselves before we transition out. It's absolutely essential for me that we have conversations about capacity. There is this burnout culture in higher ed where people are choosing to burn themselves out. Notice what I just said. I'm gonna say it one more time. People are choosing to burn themselves out in higher education. Why do I know that that's a choice? Because of this exercise. If I ask you Monday through Friday, and I also know that at times it's weekends, y'all. Absolutely. Sometimes we have work on weekends. That's just what happens. I get it. But work with me that this is a Monday through Friday exercise. Y'all with me so far? If I ask you right now, what is your Monday through Friday start of day capacity building routine? What are you being intentional to do to get your capacity at the point of overflow to start the day? All of us have heard the airplane example. Whose masks go first? It doesn't matter if the person next to you is a newborn or an elderly person in their last day alive. Whose mask goes on first? Because if you lose consciousness, you will not be of service for anything. Y'all with me so far? If you get home and you drive a car and the next morning you woke up and that tank is on empty, is that car moving? It's not, right? So when I ask you your Monday through Friday morning routine, what are you doing to get your point at overflow? So by the time you check into work, you are at 200%, because 100% is for you. But you chose an area of service. You cannot be at 100%. You got to be at 200% because you're giving. You chose to be a giver. Does that make sense to y'all? So when I ask you Monday through Friday, at what time do you wake up? What's the first thing that you do when you wake up? How do you take care of your mind, heart, body, and spirit as the first thing that you do so that your body is grateful that as soon as you woke up, you took care of it? Does that make sense, y'all? And I know that some of you were like, well, that's really easy because I know you're not talking about me as a mom when I got 6 kids. Oh, yes, I am. Come after, and I will give you 5 different Instagram accounts of moms with 6 kids and their morning routine that starts at 8 time, and they take care of themselves before the kids wake up. I know you're not talking about me because my body don't work that way, and people like me don't exercise in the mornings. Oh, yes, you do. I'm going to give you 6 Instagram accounts of people with your body who move before they do anything else in their day. Y'all with me so far? I need you to be critical that if your imagination has been programmed to believe that nobody out there in the world has your conditions or worse, and that's why it gives you permission to not take care of your body in the mornings. Holy shit, y'all. There's 7 billion humans in the world. You do not think that there's at least 5 other humans that have your same conditions or worse ones, and they're waking up and taking care of themselves? Y'all with me here? This is love. I am not scolding you. I'm calling you in. Y'all with me so far? And if I ask you, what's your midday capacity building routine? Do you have a moment at the midpoint of your day where you get to say thank you to your body and take care of yourself because you went 200% in the mornings and you got to replenish yourself? Does that make sense, y'all? That just makes sense. But do you have that routine Monday through Friday? And then at the end of the day, do you have your end of day capacity building routine? Or do you just get home and you veg out? You just go to your couch, or you just sit on your bed, or I don't know where you're sitting or where it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Do you just unload all the shit that you went through throughout the day with the people that you live with or your neighbors? Or you get online and you start venting to people online? But do you have an end of day routine that gives you the capacity for you to remember that when you check out of work, there's a whole lot of life. There's a whole lot of time that you have every single day, right or wrong. Unless y'all are working 24 hours, and don't make me show you 6 different peoples around the world that are working 24 hours, so you can be like, ah, shit. Y'all with me so far? This is my way of making sure that as we transition for the day, I'm going to ask you at the end of the day, how did you take care of yourself today? How did you hold accountable yourself today? And were you intentional about your capacity today? I'm going to trigger some of you all, and we can have this conversation afterwards. I know that this is going to be triggering, but I do not believe in the granola self-care movement that's going on right now. I am a student of Audre Lorde and third world feminist movement leaders. Self-care and healing justice, the third world feminist leaders from the 60s to present, it is your responsibility to unapologetically and radically take care of yourself because your ancestors took care of themselves for you to be here alive today. And you are the ancestor of the next generation. Your care is an act of revolution and rebellion to whoever benefits from your oppression. Y'all with me so far? I went real slow because sometimes y'all be real mad when I say we're not talking about going home and taking a bubble bath. That's part of it. But when you're locked into your role, I need you to hold ourselves accountable. Drink your water, move your body, eat your snacks, eat your meals. Give yourself permission to say, hey, let's get out of here. We have a one-on-one meeting. Let's roll, let's walk, let's run outside, get some fresh air and get some sunlight, talk business, sign business, move business. But I need energy right now. And if you make me stay indoors for this conversation, I'm not going to be my best self. It is 2 p.m. I'm hungry, I'm tired, and I'm exhausted. Does that make sense, y'all? I'm saying this in front of you, like your leadership. They need this. You need this because you are a somatic ecosystem. Y'all with me so far? So I want to plant this for you all as we transition to our student panel. For today, I want you to be top of mind. Disability justice, healing justice, transformative justice. And am I showing up with the capacity that today deserves and requires from me? Y'all with me? Can I get some thumbs up for those of us that can thumbs up? Everybody clear? Okay, beautiful. Now, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of what we're going to get into. When we come back at the end of the day, we're going to do a permissions exercise. And then we're going to do a just transition of understanding that disability justice and these justice frameworks are not just about being compliant. Don't think about punitive ways of doing this work, but think about it from a place of like empowerment or energizing. And I'm going to coach you and teach you how to do that with an exercise with each other. And then when we come back, we're also going to do a closing reflection to energize wholeness. And what that does is going to be a final diet in the exercise itself. And then we're going to practice again the permissions. That's what's at the end of the day. Just in case any of you all have to leave and can't make it to the end of the day, you'll see that there's materials there. But this is going to be a participatory exercise, so the deck itself is going to be updated with all the content that we're going to do together in community. Does that make sense to folks? Okay, I also recognize that some of you may not be here at the end of the day. I don't want you to miss out on what we're going to get into. All right, y'all, that's my time. It is 9:46 on the dot. Can I pass it over to our student panel for the next portion of the day? Thank you all so much.
Yeah, I don't think that. I don't think that. I feel like it's very open. I feel like. I know. That's why I'm. Yeah. Alrighty. If you all would like to take 5 minutes, just a quick break, we'll start in 5 minutes. That's just how close I should get. Okay. Oh, I'm like, for some reason, I did not. Oh. That's I think that. I just fixed the fitting and.
All right. All righty, everybody, if you could please make your way back to your seats. We'll get ready to get started. If you all could please make your way back to your seats. I promised the student panelists I would make a dad joke to break the ice, so here we go. I also saw this on Instagram. Why did the golfer keep buying socks? Because he had a hole in one.
Good job.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Armine Deragishian, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Students here at Irvine Valley College. I am joined by some incredible student volunteers today. Can we have a round of applause for the student volunteers? I will let you all go ahead and introduce yourselves. We will start right here.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Noor Hamid. My academic goal is to maintain a good GPA, find my passion in learning, and strive to inspire others regardless of my disability. I'm hard of hearing, partly deaf. Good afternoon or morning. I don't know what time is it. My name is Janaise Vidal. I have black hair. I have a navy blue shirt and black pants, black shoes. I am a young adult and I am short. My academic goal is to maintain a good GPA and hopefully transfer to a major to public health. My disability is ADHD and anxiety.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Tony Rose Atanasio. I am 5 feet tall, Southeast Asian woman, mid-20s. I have long black hair, and I'm wearing a coat and white shirt and black pants. My academic goal is to get my associates in art history at IVC and then transfer to a Cal State in art history, and then hopefully also as well get a master's in museum studies or arts administration. My disability is ADHD and depression.
Hello, my name is Matthew. Um, I have Asperger's. That's on the higher. That's towards the higher functioning end of the autism spectrum. I have black hair, glasses. I'm Asian, and my academic goal is to transfer to Cal State Fullerton. It was in fall 2026, right? And I'm also a biology major.
Hello, my name is Shauna Coleman. I am shorts, middle-aged woman with brown hair, wearing a mauve-colored shirt and Hot Wheels wheelchair. My academic goal is to get an associate's in paralegal studies, something you can do sitting down. And yeah, my disability is I have a hemiplegic. I don't have a use of my left leg and some spotty numbing and paralyzed.
My name's Leah Garay. I am about 5'5", and I have brown eyes, and my hair is brown. It's a little bit past my shoulders, and I'm wearing a black skirt and a striped shirt. Let's see here. My academic goal is I would love to return back to Cal State Fullerton to get my teaching credentials in early childhood special education. And I have 2 invisible disabilities. I have a learning disability called dyslexia, and then I also have a processing disability as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very excited to meet you all. I actually will go ahead and describe myself as well. I am a woman, 5'1" on a good day, wearing a navy blue blazer and navy blue pants. Heavy set, a little bit like a fluffy marshmallow. We'll get started. Alrighty. For our first question, I am going to ask this question to Matt, Noor, and Shauna. What does accountability mean to you in an educational setting, and how would you describe your experience with accessibility at IVC? Matt, you can go first.
To me, accessibility means leveling the playing field for disabled students so they have equal opportunities as non-disabled students. For example, I was recently diagnosed with auditory processing disorder in 2020, which makes it hard to hear correctly. There was no background noise. Everything comes in at the same volume, from the people talking, the lights buzzing, the air conditioning, the cars across the street, and even conversations down the hall. This is because the incoming signals from my left and right ears reach my brain asynchronously. Normally, they are supposed to arrive at the exact same time. Listening feels like a spotty internet connection on Zoom. This makes note-taking difficult because my brain doesn't process everything the professor says, regardless if I'm taking notes or paying close attention to them. It's even more difficult if the professor is talking too fast. It takes up to 15 minutes for my brain to process what the professor has said. Because of my slow processing speed, it's difficult to take notes and listen to lectures simultaneously without missing something. Thankfully, I have an accommodation that allows me to record the lecture with a special pen called a smart pen. After the lecture and taking notes, I spend the extra time going over the lecture again to fill in the parts my ears didn't pick up, so I can have complete notes like the other students. The smart pen accommodation I have makes lectures more accessible for me. Auditory processing disorder can lead to me being confused or misunderstanding things, and has been a source of frustration throughout my life. I have an ear filter in my have an ear filter in my right ear that is designed to synchronize the auditory signals, but even that isn't perfect. Noisy environments still make it hard for me to hear conversations, and it can even sound like some people are on mute.
Thank you, Matt. Alrighty, we will go with Noor next.
Accessibility means to me that being able to provide people with disability areas of support they needed throughout academic, career guidance, and life skill necessity. Those with disability feel left out sometimes, and that there's no assistance with them that they need when it comes to few places for majority of people, such as language barrier, behavior problems, and vision problems. I would describe my experience with accessibility. I received additional support here is great. I have interpreting services for my classes and college appointment. This platform called Auto AI, and it's like recording lectures and to help understand what they're talking about. Although I don't meet a lot of deaf people here, I'm so grateful to meet many people who know ASL and took classes to learn to just communicate with me.
Thank you. Right, Shauna, you'll go last.
Accessibility, I guess I'll start with the backstory. 5 years ago, independent single mother of 5. I was working hard. I was doing everything that you're supposed to do, from chasing my kids around to one day becoming disabled. Overnight, it changed my world, but my youngest was 6 months old at the time, and she learned to crawl up me and use me as her personal stroller. So we adapted together. When I decided to go back to school at 47, after 30 years of not being in school and not having the opportunity to get college or go to college, even though I forced that upon my older kids, I was scared. as I am now because this is intimidating. But it was intimidating. Everything had changed. So technology is different, classrooms are different, the learning style also is different. And I wasn't sure if I needed accommodations or what I needed for accommodations, and how I was going to do this alone. But coming to IVC, I found out that I was not alone. With the DSPS services, they helped me not only understand what services I will need in the classrooms and the settings, they also walked the campus and showed me where the elevators were and the ramps and things of that sort. So that truly did help. They made me feel supported day in and day out. They didn't just accommodate me, they empowered me. To me, accessibility isn't just about the ramps and the elevators. It's a mindset. It's about how a classroom is set up. It's about having support services in place that don't make you feel like you're a burden. It's being able to focus on learning instead of what you're going to do physically or how you're physically going to get into a classroom. Looking back, I realize how much I've changed. I'm more confident, more vocal, and more determined than ever. Accessibility doesn't just give me the tools, it gives me back my voice and possibly gives a voice to others as well. Accessibility means included, being heard, and not having to ask for the bare minimum. And at IBC, I felt seen, not just as a student with a disability, but as a whole person trying to learn and grow.
Thank you. For question number 2, I'm going to ask Janiska, Leah, and Shauna. Can you share a time when you faced challenges related to accessibility on campus and how you addressed or overcame them? We will start with Leah first.
All right. Like I stated before, I did go to Cal State Fullerton. I've had amazing experiences here at IBC, but however, I faced significant challenges with the DSS department at Cal State Fullerton. I took an exam in the DSS department using a Scantron, and when I received the exam back, I got a poor grade. When I went to visit the professor during office hours, we determined that I incorrectly transferred my answers onto the Scantron. Additionally, the Scantron was different than what I was used to. I was not provided with guidance on how to use it. To address this concern, I wanted to write my answers directly onto the exam, rather than using the Scantron. However, the DSS department wouldn't allow me to do so, nor did they advocate on my behalf, even though this issue was directly related to my disability. So I went directly to the professor and for permission to write on my answers directly on the exam. Unfortunately, by the time it was approved, it was too late. My grade in the class was ultimately impacted. So basically what I'm saying is it's really important to give us accommodations and advocate for us for our needs, because it's not our fault. Like, we need these accommodations to be successful, to be like you said, our typical neurotypical classmates, right? And we need these accommodations to show in our abilities, to basically show our abilities that we're able to accomplish things like our neurotypical classmates. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bravely sharing that example so that we can learn as well. All right, Janiska, you may go next.
So a challenge that I faced on campus is, but first of all, something I like to say that anybody that has ADHD or has a disability does not go through the same experiences. So every experience may vary in how they learned educationally or in their life. By answering this question, some challenges I faced was anxiety. I do not like taking tests, even though I'm trying to earn a degree, bachelor's and associates. So one time I became so nervous because of my ADHD, I tend to forget things very easily. Like, if somebody interrupts me, I forget what I'm saying, even though it's a presentation. If somebody opens a door, if somebody makes a loud noise or a water bottle drops, I forget what I'm supposed to say. And I always try to remember, for example, what I'm about to say. For example, I didn't write any words to say in this panel because I want to overcome those challenges that I face today. So some way I overcome panic attacks is breathing, going to nature. I always bring my headphones because sometimes noises make me overstimulated when I have panic attacks. That's all.
Thank you. Leah, go ahead. Leah, go ahead. Oh, I already did. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Shayna, go ahead. Shauna.
It's okay, thank you. I guess the most recent one, the most particular one that I can think of for on campus here was during the rainy days. Being in a wheelchair, it's not very fun. Hands are slippery, ground is wet, mud's all over your clothes. I have to end up covering my backpacks constantly, but mainly the construction that was going on. I learned that I had to pop wheelies over specific grates and things of that sort, avoid ditches and things of that, fences, going over grass even, trying to not hydroplane my wheelchair while getting to class. Now, to be clear that I knew that the construction was going to go on, IVC was very forthcoming of where it's going to be. Doesn't mean that there was no challenges getting to the classroom. But it definitely tested my determination and balance. When it comes to overcoming challenges like that, I've learned to adapt when necessary and speak up and advocate for myself and others when necessary. I advocate, or I sometimes showing up with a smile and staying visible is a form of advocacy to me. Or making a joke about it, because that's always fun. Every time I roll across campus or participate in lab or speak up in class, I feel like I'm helping a change to see how people see disability as a whole. I realize that being present, positive, and proud makes me different, and it invites others to rethink the assumptions and to treat inclusion as normal, not optional. What's just as powerful is seeing quiet acts of inclusion, like teachers who move chairs out of the way, making sure that a table's available, moving backpacks off of the floor so I can get access to the desk without making a big deal of it. And that kindness matters. Just those simple acts can show others exactly how to, I guess, act or respond to specific challenges. The best part is other students I'm noticing is also noticing, and they follow those examples. They'll hold open a door a little longer just to make sure I can make it through. They're more accountable as far as in the classroom, they'll be able to reach certain high objects off of the lab. I mean, I'm in bio, the tables won't shift down, but at least I know that the students that I'm working with in my group are accountable and accessible and helping me out on all the challenges that I face in that classroom. And they're not doing it out of pity. They're doing it because it feels normal to them now. It's second nature, and it's similar to what my daughter learned how to walk on me. Instead of using a push toy, she used me as her push toy. She didn't know anything else, right? So she learned how to walk through me. And similar to these, I say kids because I'm old, but we're all students there. I feel like they're learning something at the same time and in their own way, kind of advocating for others as well to be more kind and empathetic and understanding and treating everybody similar. I don't feel like I'm a burden anymore in the classrooms. And I feel that I'm just another classmate, right? A slightly older one, but still a peer. And I want to definitely advocate and say thank you to the IBC staff and the DSPS programs to be able to help advocate for that, as well as the administrators and the teachers that I have, the professors that I have, that has made the disability almost obsolete. It's invisible as it should be, because I don't feel that I'm handicapped. I feel like I'm handy-capable.
Thank you. For our next question, I am going to ask Matt and Leah to chime in. Question number 3, what are some common misconceptions about accessibility in education, and how can we challenge them? Matt, you're welcome to go ahead.
A common misconception about accessibility in education is that accommodations such as for tests give disabled students an unfair advantage over non-disabled students, and some even consider it cheating. However, disabled students have to do extra work when it comes to accommodations. They are not automatic and need to be requested and approved by a DSPS counselor and each professor. For tests, I have to remember to send requests at least a week in advance. And because I have difficulties with executive functioning, it is a challenge just to schedule and plan for my accommodations. Additionally, extra time on an exam doesn't matter if you don't know the material. I still have to work hard and study, or I won't be able to answer the questions. I've still gotten C's on exams with extra time accommodations. It's not a guaranteed A. I have documented slow processing and auditory processing disorder combined with test anxiety, so I need extra time for tests. I also can't have 2 exams in one day because I get overwhelmed, break out in a sweat, and get tunnel vision, causing me to miss important test information. My brain freezes, making it very difficult to do the test. Therefore, one of my accommodations is being able to reschedule the test with my professor to an earlier or later date. In addition, I have difficulty doing sequential things such as chemistry lab experiments. So I needed extra lab time because it doesn't come naturally for me, unlike others. If the lab instructions are completely verbal with no visual cues, I had to draw out the entire lab procedure, which was a frustrating hassle for me. So much so that I wished I didn't have to do the extra work. But it paid off because I was able to do the chemistry experiment much faster. I once remarked that the executive functioning needed for scheduling my accommodations is harder than calculus. I think the best way to challenge the I think the best way to challenge misconceptions about accessibility in education is through education itself and events just like this that help others understand the world from the perspective of those with disabilities. It's just like that quote, that saying, walk a mile in another person's shoes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Leah.
So I have the same thing as some common misconceptions is that with accessibility in education environments, is that they are unfair. And somehow the students that are receiving them are basically cheating.
You're doing an amazing job. We can keep going. Don't worry, we'll come back.
Oh, it's okay. Okay. To me, accessibility in education setting means the necessary tools to demonstrate your ability to become academically successful. I need to remind myself that equality does not take into account individual needs. Excuse me. So for instance, my accessibility that I use services is the technology services to access reading material through a digital reader. I also take my exams in a distraction-free location, and I receive additional time to complete them. I have to keep in mind that accessibility allows individuals like myself to be able to be on a equal playing field as my neurotypical classmates. It has nothing to do with cheating. It simply ensures that I have the same opportunity to demonstrate my knowledge in the material, sorry. To change this mindset, right? To change the mindset, we need to educate both students and staff the importance of individual needs. There should be more conversation, like we spoke about, more conversation about the differences that may require different kinds of different kinds of support to succeed. We need to believe that fair is everybody getting what they need in order to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, for our next question, we get to hear from Tony and Noor. Question number 4, how do you think the college can foster a more inclusive environment for students with accessibility needs, both physically and digitally? You can go first, Noor.
Okay. I think we can foster a more inclusive environment by setting up a variety of clubs for people with different kinds of disabilities and more events to connect with others so they don't feel exclusive. I think one thing that this college need is the VP, which is a video phone. A video phone is very, very important to me because it device that allows both audio and video to really connect, and it shows independence and reliance on oneself and not with others. For example, I have to make an appointment for a doctor's call, but I can't really just make a call like a regular call. Instead, I use a VP, and a VP is like FaceTime call. There's an interpreter, and interpreter is on a call with a doctor, and I had to use ASL while the interpreter is speaking for me. So instead of telling others to make an appointment for me, I can do myself. Sometimes people think just because I'm deaf, mean I can't and I'm not capable of doing anything. But I think we all can.
Thank you. Tony?
I will start off by saying that I love using Canvas. I don't love as much emails. I talked with Ace at the Humanities Mixer earlier this week, and he knows we've talked about the emails. But I love when professors, instructors really utilize Canvas. It's such a great space for uploading slide presentations and PDFs or any kind of multimedia documents. I tend to revisit things more than once. I also listen to text out loud instead of reading them usually. So I find having that digital hub on the Canvas shell is really helpful. And also when professors are using it for announcements, for lines of communication instead of solely email, that's also really helpful. I'm also part of some student support programs who are transitioning to Canvas and not just email. And I find that that really keeps me accountable in terms of completing requirements for student support programs and just being participatory in those programs as well. And also, if you know me, you know I study everywhere on this campus. I like a variety of places to study at. I use the DSPS study room, which is lovely, but I also just am in the canopy. I'm in the bistic. I'm in the cafeteria. I'm in the music and dance hall. I'm in the visual arts building. I like variety. And I'm so glad that they're doing, I've been here for a long time on and off. And so I like that there has been the seating and tables that are back in the Bistic building. They weren't there for a long time. And I just really like having a variety of places to study at. And it's really, really, really helpful to keep me engaged and participatory in my classes as well.
Thank you, Tony. So you all are doing amazing. We have 2 more questions to go. Take a deep breath. We're learning so much from you. We're going to keep going. For the next question, I'm going to ask Tony, Matt, and Janeska. Can you recall a time when you found a class more accessible due to its design, allowing you to rely less on your accommodation? Can you tell us a little bit about that? We will start with Janeska.
So, actually, I used less accommodations this semester because thankfully, the professors that I took, for example, Chem, they gave out videos and PDF of their presentations when the lectures were already held. And I cannot process that fast than other of my classmates. And because of my professor posting those lecture slides in Canvas, I was able to study more and hopefully do well in my tests/quizzes. At the same time, I was able to review and review what I needed to do in, for example, lab. Relying less on my accommodations makes me feel more like an adult and like something that I could do by myself, not relying on others. Sorry, I'm breaking down there. Yeah, that was my answer, sorry.
Thank you. Tony, we can have you go next.
In the past, I took Introduction to Art Theory taught by Professor Salamoni. She was a wonderful teacher and I had a wonderful time, but she had structured the class where there was no homework. All I had to do was read a chapter from a textbook, and at the end of the lecture, at the end of the day, we would do an exit ticket, which means we would do an activity like write an extended paragraph about the theory we just learned and apply that to an artwork. For me, homework is really difficult. Scheduling time and having the time management skills can be really difficult for me. But I found that the structure of the class was so unique that it let me succeed really well. And also, last semester, I started taking art classes. And these classes are really long, but that means we can take a break whenever we feel like it, essentially. So I liked having time to work at my own pace in doing really deep focus work, but also having the professor there for feedback for any kinds of questions we had about what we were doing that day or what our project is going to be like before it was due. So I really liked having one-on-one time with the professor, but also just being around an environment where your classmates are also doing work and seeing them doing work. I really like being in that ambiance as well. It really creates an environment for me where I feel like I could succeed, and it's a place where I could thrive as well.
Thank you, Tony. All righty, Matt, go ahead.
Classes that are flipped, where I watch the recorded lecture before attending class, are more accessible for me because I can pause, rewind, and change the speed of the video as needed, allowing me to rely less on my accommodations. For example, when I took my Chem 1B, Calculus 2, and Bio 81 honors classes, it was easier for me to understand the concepts compared to in-person lectures. Even though it took extra time to go through the lecture videos, it helped with my auditory processing issues. Also, lab classes that have written instructions with pictures and diagrams are naturally more accessible. For example, in my biology lab, it was easier to understand the instructions because there were pictures of the lab equipment and setup. In general, when I have written instructions, it is more accessible because I can always refer back to the instructions.
Thank you, Matt. All righty, we are on our last question. This question is for Leah and Noor. What would you like others to understand better about accessibility that they may not realize or may overlook? Noor, you can go first.
I mostly struggle with communication barrier whenever I meet with people everywhere, stores, doctors, school. I feel like I had to repeat myself and repeat what they were saying. But they don't even know it's a struggle for me. I felt resentful to myself that I had to use the Note app, which is the only way for me. I wish them to understand when it comes to deaf community, raising your voice or keep speaking verbally won't really change anything. Just because I'm deaf doesn't mean, well, I am deaf, but it's not gonna really change anything if you keep raising your voice. So there are ways to communicate, like sign language, just as writing in paper back and forth, which has really helped me a lot, and typing in any type of device or using gestures. This is how we can show support, and it means a lot with these kind of effort. Or what means more to me is if they take the time to take classes and learn ASL, that would mean the world to me.
Thank you.
So like I mentioned previously, the common misconception for accessibilities in the education environment is that it's unfair and somehow that students are cheating. However, I feel that, sorry. However, I feel others need to understand that some individuals require accommodations to be successful and reach their full potential. Society needs to acknowledge and accept the differences exist, and it's okay to be different. And some people need those accommodations to thrive. Regardless of our differences and our abilities, everyone can contribute to society in their own unique way. As I reflect on my educational journey, I know. Sorry. As I reflect on my educational journey, I know without my accommodations, accessibilities, such as text-to-speech, technology, extended time, and taking my exams in separate locations, I wouldn't have been able to transfer to Cal State Fullerton and graduate with highest honors. Like I said previously, I have to remind myself that accessibilities are allowed individuals like myself to be on an equal playing field with my neurotypical classmates. Fairness isn't about giving everyone the same thing. It's about everyone getting the things they need to be successful and to succeed, which allowed me to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your incredible bravery that you've shown today. We have learned so much from what you all shared. We're so excited to keep cheering you on and to learn about your goals and how you're making progress. Please, please, please let us know how we can help you. And again, thank you. This was incredibly brave and we so appreciate it.
Well, I'm a hot mess. Thank you guys. That was super courageous and very insightful information for all of us to take with us. Thank you for being here. They worked really hard for this, and it took a lot of courage to come out here. I feel like a emotional mama bear, like proud. I'm like so proud of you guys. Okay, you guys, either you can stay there. Uh, so my name is Vanessa Marquez. I'm a DSPS counselor and learning disability specialist. I am 5'5", although my doctor says 5'4". I fight them all the time, like I'm 3/4. And I am a brown woman, middle-aged with brown hair, wearing a blue blazer, and always fighting to lose 10 pounds. So we are about to begin the simulation activity. So you're gonna experience what it's like to be in the shoes of somebody who experiences anxiety, neurodivergence, dyslexia, and a visual impairment. So take this opportunity to get a good understanding and deepen your knowledge for people who walk society with these experiences. And we really thank you for being open to their perspective. But before we begin, I want to give you guys a heads up. This is your trigger warning. So excuse me while I read this. The simulations may include loud or overlapping sounds, bright or flashing lights, fast-moving visuals, and other sensory effects that some may find overwhelming. If you are sensitive to these stimuli, please proceed with caution or skip this section. Okay? Now take a deep breath and we will begin. So raise your hand if you're facilitating one of the stations. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, and I think 4 over there. Okay, so we have 4 simulations, like I said. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna divide the group and I will have you follow one of them, okay? So, and we have 4 simulations and they each are about 2 minutes long. Please feel free to jump at another line and visit as many simulations as you can. Okay, so we're gonna start with row 1 here.
Thank you. We're going to get started now with the second half of Ruben's discussion. So if I can please have everyone find your seats, find your space on the wall if you were hanging out, standing. Thank you.
All right, y'all. We are going to now go into an intentional community processing exercise. And then afterwards, we're going to go into the decompression exercise that I promised y'all for the end of the day. So at this point, it's going to be a 2-part exercise. One is to frame this into when we get invited specifically to disability conversations, or actually, you know, the other one that's really good, that's really relevant is academic probation conversations or dismissal conversations. Y'all with me so far? How many of y'all have ever worked on academic probation? I'll break it down to you right now. Academic probation folks have been participants in that in whatever capacity? And then how many of y'all have been in dismissal spaces? So dismissal is when you have gotten to the point where either it's academic dismissal or behavioral dismissal, but you are no longer allowed to continue in the institution for those reasons. And sometimes you make contracts that you negotiate with the institution so that you can return. Other times it's just like final. Does that make sense to y'all? Yeah, everybody with me? So the reason why I'm bringing those spaces into this space is because there's a very different approach to probation and dismissal conversations that you can either be compliance driven or you can be empowerment driven. Y'all with me so far? If you all want to practice transformative justice, one of the core beliefs is that we have to believe that people are better than the worst thing that they've ever done. Because if all of us were to be moving every day with some kind of a projection playing behind us of the 3 worst things that you've ever done in life, and everybody was treating you in that way, you probably would not be in this room. Y'all with me? There's just some people in the current way that we're doing humaning, or society, whatever you want to call it, that we have more capacity for some people to make mistakes and not be held with a punitive experience. And other people, when they make mistakes, they get the worst of the punitive experiences that we have. Y'all with me so far? Some of you have heard the phrase, some of us in society fail up. Some of us in society fail down. And some of us fail in society and we're kicked out of the circle of human care. Y'all with me? None of that is helpful when we are in a space that is actively committed to either disability justice, healing justice, or transformative justice. Y'all with me so far? So in that exercise, the exercises that you are part of today, to give you some kind of lived experience or exposure to experiences of people across different spectrums of capacities, you can also apply it in your own. What are the experiences that you have that not everybody knows around you? And in those experiences that you have, which of them are more welcome and which of them are more excluded? Y'all with me so far? And y'all, it doesn't always have to be ability driven. One of the things that I like to lift as an example is there's a lot of ageism in the United States. there's an assumption that the younger you are, the less that you know, and the less mature that you are. And that the older you are, up to a certain point, you are wiser and can contribute more. But up to a certain point. But as soon as you become over that point, notice I'm not saying any numbers because y'all be, I've known how to navigate this conversation. But after that point, all of a sudden, you get pushed out of the way because now you are fill in the blank, whatever you call your people that are older than you after that certain point. Is that helpful? Whereas there's other locations that have a different culture. I've told you my mom's indigenous, but I don't know if you saw, I don't know if you all caught it because I didn't, and I didn't reference it. But I also grew up in a martial arts family. My dad, is there a laser here? No. Okay. My father is on this slide. He's the bald man with the mustache. He still has that mustache and he's still bald. And he has all those medals. My dad has the highest records for martial arts in all of the American continent. When he competed from the age of 22 to 36, he's the only person from the American continent that ever made it into the top 4 in the world. And as of last October, we went to Japan and my dad turned 50 years teaching karate. So now he's the highest ranking black belt from a Mexican and American background or from the American continent from a non-Japanese background. So I come from very elite martial arts. In the karate world, ageism is very different. I started karate when I was 3. By the time that I was 9, I was a black belt. As a 9-year-old, I would put on my black belt and I would go into the dojo. And if you were a white belt and you were 69 years old, you bow to me. I'm the black belt. You are the white belt. It is my responsibility to take care of you and your body and teach you martial arts. A 9-year-old to a 69-year-old. Does that make sense to y'all? In the same way that vice versa. You can be an 82-year-old. There's a sensei, there's a senpai. Sensei is the teacher of senpais. There's shihans, who are the teachers of the senseis. And then there's hanshis, which is my dad now, who's a teacher of everybody. Does that make sense? But if your sensei or shihan or hanshi is an 85-year-old, you bow to the 85-year-old and they know more than you. And they get to lead you in that class. Y'all with me? And y'all, bear with me. I hope you can imagine this. But I've been in classes where the hanji is 85 and then the shihan is 65. But then the sensei that was available for that class was a 15-year-old. And the senpai of the class is a 9-year-old. And I know that that's true because I was that 9-year-old in that 15 and the 65 and the 85. Does that make sense, y'all? Ageism in the world of martial arts is very different. You know that when you enter the dojo is a sacred place where everybody's learning from each other and everybody's taking care of each other. I don't think we have that in many other spaces. Y'all with me so far? So if I ask y'all on a regular basis, how many of y'all are in multi-generational spaces where if you're the oldest in that room, you're not always expected to be the teacher and sometimes you're the student? How many of y'all are in multi-generational spaces that because you're the youngest doesn't always mean that you're always the student, but sometimes you get to also be the teacher? Y'all with me so far? So for me, when we have this conversation, I love that I was invited to facilitate the beginning to frame the day with you all, introduce these concepts, but to bring it back at the end of the day to make sure that y'all not leaving with an understanding, oh, I just need to be compliant with accessibility and accommodations, because then we're not getting it. Disability and the disability justice movement, if you have not watched the Crip Camp documentary on Netflix, please watch Crip Camp. If you're like, I'm not into documentaries, it's not a documentary. I don't like movies, it's not a movie. I don't like watching or hearing stuff. You're not gonna watch or hear stuff. You're going to feel that. What does it mean that at some point, I'm not going to tell you when, at some point, some college students, where are we right now? On a college campus. Some college students decided to host a camp for kids with disabilities without adult supervision. You know how amazing that is? You know how we would never do that right now? It was a sweet spot in our experience that we let some college kids that didn't know what the hell they were doing do a community service camp, recruit all these kids that at that point, y'all, there was no cell phones, there was no FaceTime. You didn't know where the hell you were sending your kid, and you just sent your kid somewhere in a wheelchair with breathing devices, in a bed, like chaos of the most beautiful kind. And over a summer, they built friendships and started visioning a world that they wanted to be a part of. And those kids became older kids and then became adults. And the reason why we have disability accommodations in the United States is because of that summer camp. That sounds ridiculous to you, unless you watch the documentary. Y'all with me so far? But it was never just about punitive compliance of training people to be afraid of disabilities and getting sued. That's the problem. It didn't register for people that we needed culture change, and that there's a way that we can think about disability through a lens of justice for empowering our relationships and the way that we do community with each other. Y'all with me so far? So for me, the question is going to be this. I'm going to ask y'all to be in your dyad again so that we can uproot some of the assumptions that we're making, and that I make sure that we facilitate in this space that transition from the assumptions that we're making and going from compliance to making sure that we're moving towards empowerment. And y'all, if the word empowerment doesn't land for you, that's totally fine. Think agency building. Think a more affirmative term that is not just punitive and compliant driven. Does that make sense to folks? I don't want you to get caught up with language, because English is not even my first language. So do with the language what you want. I just want you to participate in the exercise in a way that we're thinking that we're not just going to be scolding each other to be just in our accessibility experience. Is that landing well? Is that good with everybody? So the diet that you're going to do right now, I'm going to give you 2 minutes each. It's going to be, the first thing is like, let's bring up the assumptions. Let's bring up the subconscious. What comes up for you when you think about the word compliance? What comes up when you think about the word empowerment? And then the most important question is, what is one way that we can practice empowerment in your role or in your team? It's all about applicability, y'all. Does that make sense? Like, if we're just here to talk concepts and terms, we're not doing much here. It has to be applied. Whether you're the president or the VP or a faculty or a staff member, everybody in here is creating what we call culture and is shaping the reality of the community. Y'all with me so far? So don't look at me, look at each other, find your partner. You're gonna get into this dyad. I hope that you sat with somebody that you haven't partnered with today. And if not, that's totally fine. Find somebody. Make your way. Don't start yet. Just find your partner, because I'm going to give you time. If you can hear my voice, raise your hand or otherwise signify if you need a partner. You see how I went slow? Who needs a partner? One hand up there. Anybody else need one over here? Can I pair you hands? Maybe meet in the middle, back there, over there. Can you make your way over there? Do you need a partner also? One more. Does anybody else? Are we an odd number? Okay, give me a second. I'll partner with you. Here we go. 2 minutes? Well, you already know you're going to cheat. So who's going to be one? Who's going to be two? Who's going to be one? Who's going to be two? One? One? Okay, I'll be two. And I'm going to give you a timer. Ready? So I'm going to find out a lot about y'all if I have a room full of cheaters. The first time, 2 went first. So some of you might got smart and be like, I'll be 1. You gonna go first then. 1's go first now. 2's listen. And then we're gonna switch. Does that make sense to folks? Look at you, all of you. Shit. Y'all ready? Timer in 3, 2, 1, begin. Five seconds. And that's time. If you can hear my voice, wrap up that final offering. And then give each other an affirmation. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate you. Okay. How much time does it say there? Just to show proof that I'm using a timer for these exercises. Because then some of you are like, was that 2 minutes? I'm like, I don't know. That's what it says. Let's switch partners. Ready? 3, 2, 1, begin. And that's time. If you can hear my voice, wrap up. How much time do you see there? 2:12. 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Everybody got some time. Look at your partner. Thank you. Say thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is this. Right now, what you're seeing is blank, but I'm gonna start typing on my side, okay? And then this is gonna be the collective wisdom of the room. I don't want to ask you about what came up for you in compliance or empowerment. I want to start generating action and like yes energy. So what came up in the practice? What did you think about in your role or in your team? How do you start practicing, playing with? I hope practice lands well with y'all. Practice is like, we got to give each other more practice spaces. Everybody's so pressured to always be perfect. You can't say the wrong thing. You can't make a mistake. You know, like practice spaces, like a dojo, like a karate dojo. You're there with the understanding that you're there to practice and that by the end of the class, hopefully you'll be a little bit better. But it's okay for you to make mistakes. It's okay for you to lose balance. You're getting to know your body as you're practicing different things. That's what I mean by practice. Some folks also say play or like experiment. Whatever your cup of tea is, or coffee, or ice cream, there you go, whatever it is, do that. Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna ask, since there's 3 sections, let's do a 4th section over there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna invite one person from each section just to get us going. And then the invitation from you all is, I hope that you all facilitate a similar conversation with your teams so that you can build on this. Does that make sense to folks? Everybody good? So I'm gonna start with my left, your right. One person from this side, what's one practice that came up for you as you were doing this exercise? Yeah. Thank you. Next section. Yes. Oh, can you do me a favor? Can you use that microphone for the Zoom crew? And then who has access to the Zoom? Can y'all see the Zoom people? Oh, we're not on Zoom anymore. Okay, but yeah. Oh, we are. But the mic is yours and I'm listening. So do your thing. What came up for you?
Testing Zoom crew. Can you hear me? Are you there? So my partner and I, Julia, we talked a lot about creating a supportive environment and how we can basically ask a really simple question that is effective at the same time, which is how can I support you? And in what ways can I make you feel capable of effectuating whatever things you have to do for the day, for your role, for your life? And so I think just trying to actually engage in a kind of dialogue with people and genuinely ask them like, what is it that I can do to help you and support you, is actually creating an environment of empowerment. And so that's pretty simple, but that's what we had.
I love that. I'm just gonna plant this here for you all. If you are a supervisor or if you are a supervisee in your context of your space, it is absolutely essential that you know what is your ideal experience and how can I help you realize that. I'm gonna say that one more time. What is your ideal experience and how can I help you realize that? That's medicine, That's magic. Those are possibilities. If you're talking to the president or the VP or the executive director or the director or your peer or your supervisee or your mentee, in all directions, we do not ask each other enough, what is your ideal experience and how can I support you in realizing it? Does that make sense to folks? I love that because things are always going to change, y'all. All of you know this. Your Monday doesn't feel like your Friday, right or wrong. Your Tuesday doesn't feel like your Thursday, right or wrong. And your Wednesday doesn't feel like next week's Wednesday. And it's still a Wednesday. So being in the practice of asking each other, what is your ideal experience today or in this conversation or in this meeting? And how can I support you and vice versa, either at the beginning or the end, is going to be that practice. And it's so accessible. And if you do not feel that that question is accessible, you got to let that person know, yo, I'm trying to help you realize your ideal, but I'm anxious or I'm nervous or I'm afraid of saying those words to you for some reason. Do you feel that too? And when we practice, level 1 is somebody that it doesn't activate you at all to practice with. Does that make sense to you? Level 10 is the most difficult person that comes to mind for you to practice that with. I hope that when you start practicing, you don't start with your level 10. You start with your level 1 and you work your way up to your level 10. Does that make sense to folks? It's almost like if you are a sedentary person that doesn't exercise, and then I come up to you like, yo, you down to run a marathon? And you're like, oh, what? A marathon? Okay, when? If I say in a year from now, you're like, oh, I've never done a marathon. How do you do that? But if I tell you tomorrow, it becomes a joke. So why would we do that to ourselves? And when we're learning concepts, that the next day we want to apply them with the most difficult people to apply that with. Y'all with me so far? And to all my perfectionists in this space, it's called practice for a reason. You don't have to be perfect. And also be mindful, I'm sure y'all heard this term, but I'm just naming it here. Perfectionist procrastination is lethal. When you feel that you can't practice something until you're perfect at it, and therefore you don't do anything about it, that's scary. Y'all with me so far? Okay, 1, 2, and now 3. 3 here. What came up for folks? A practice that we want to try on? Yeah.
And then applying it to her daily work, which was empowering for me, because hearing that makes me realize that she's not only doing something now in the space today, she's trying to do something now in the space for tomorrow and the days to come.
Yeah.
Which makes it easier for others to want to do that same feeling, educating themselves and realizing that there's things that need to change society-wise.
Yeah.
Internally, so it empowers everybody to want that same feeling.
I promise you that I know how to type and that I know grammar, but I'm going quick. So when you, huh? Oh, no, because that's just in presentation mode, but I'm typing it in the actual Google slide. Can you see? Can you corroborate that? I'm not up here just texting the homies, you know what I mean? Like, although that would be fun. Hey, boo, how you doing? Okay. And then can I get the 4th group over here? What's one practice that came up for you all? Yeah. Oh, yeah, to the mic. I'm so sorry. That's on me. Can you, do you mind?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
I'm at the mic. Hello.
Go ahead.
So when we were talking about the context of empowerment, our group really discussed how do you bring empowerment into practice? And we talked about empowerment not being able to occur without consistent mindfulness and without a consistent level of care. And how does that play out in our respective roles and how we interact with each other? It's that intentional openness to input from our respective roles as educators, whether it's as a staff member or faculty or administrator, of from those different spaces and roles, being able to be open to that input, right? That's really the details of how empowerment can take place by, again, demonstrating mindfulness and a consistent level of care.
Beautiful. Can we give some snaps to everybody that shared an idea today? Beautiful. So I'm getting y'all going here so that I'm inviting you all in your student spaces, in your staff spaces, faculty spaces, administrative spaces. Bring this conversation in there. You do not have to be an expert, y'all, to introduce people to concepts. We forget sometimes that we're working on college campuses. People are absolutely brilliant in this community. Sometimes we're human and we don't show up in brilliant ways, but you cannot forget that you're surrounded by nerds. I'm gonna say that one more time. You chose to be on a college campus today. You are surrounded by nerds. Nerds have the ability to learn and comprehend. And if they're created a condition and an environment to practice, they will practice. We cannot help ourselves. How many of you all to this day hear or learn a new word, and then for the rest of the week is the word of the week? You're a nerd. I can give you many more examples. Don't make me, okay? We can start talking about all kinds of like fringe stuff. Some of you learn a new dish and then you're about to eat that for a month until you perfect it. You know, stuff like that. Okay, cool. The exercise is, if you start having these conversations with folks and you get to ask them, how do we want to practice? The next thing that needs to happen is you need to create practice conditions. Give each other permission to literally say or sign or write, do I have permission to practice with you? And if they say yes, practice, whatever that is. And if they say no, don't. Does that make sense to y'all? Let me make it real intimate for you all. I changed my entire relationship with my mom and with my dad, because it's a privilege to have parents and for them to be alive. And I actively use the practice language with them, where they get to tell me, can I practice with you? And I say, yes. I'm like, I'm gonna practice saying it messy, but know that I'm trying to come from the most loving place. That's the practice that I got going on with my mom. Because my mom is ¿cómo se dice? En español, in English is like she scold talks. She doesn't know how to not scold talk. I did not grow up in a house where I was like woken up with like a buenos dias. Good morning, my love. It's time to wake up. It's 4:30 a.m. You have to go run and train before you go to school. I love you. I did not grow up like that. I grew up with like a kick in the door and then a very expressive and colorful good morning. That by the time I heard the kick in the door, my body like a ninja would just like jump out of bed and pretend like I was awake the last 30 minutes. Does that make sense, y'all? So because of that, my mom has almost 40 years of her life practicing communication the way that she was coded. So for me to recode and reprogram the communication with my mom, she needs to feel comfortable saying, yo, I got to practice because I'm about to pop off on you. And all she wants is for me to go buy her some tortillas, but she doesn't recognize that she's scold talking and she's just asking for some tortillas. Y'all with me so far? With my dad gets to practice sharing with me. I know that what I believe right now is wrong, but this is what's coming up for me, and I want you to help me figure out how to think about it differently. Because my dad has very different belief systems than the one that he knows that I do. And when he recognizes that, he knows that he can say that with me so that it becomes a learning moment because he realizes that what he's about to say, he doesn't want to keep believing or saying it again. Does that make sense to y'all? Fill in the blank about a bunch of stuff there. Those are my practice zones with my parents. And if you can make practice zones with your parents or with your partner or with the people that know you in your most vulnerable places, you think you can do practice spaces at work? It's work. You can create practice spaces in that space. Does that make sense to folks? Y'all know who the Dalai Lama is? The Dalai Lama has a test for all of his lamas. None of them can become a lama until they spend a full week with their families and then come back and tell him if they feel enlightened. That's some deep shit. Where you spend your entire life being a monk, and before you can reach the highest point, you have to go for a week with your family and see if you're ready to be a lama. Y'all with me? I love that exercise. Okay, let's bring it home. Closing is this. The closing diet that you're going to do with your partner, because I want to make sure that we wrap up here together. We can't assume, y'all, that we're all experiencing experiences in the same ways. Does that make sense to folks? It's helpful when you create a practice or a learning environment at the end of the day to check in with yourself and with somebody around you about that experience. So processing questions around what did you learn or what were you reminded of today helps people tap into the specific learning that they want to name for themselves. But some of us feel some type of way because of experiences that we've had in the past, that when you hear that you had to learn something new, it's actually not affirming, because then you start being really tough on yourself. Does that make sense? It's like the whole inner negative self-talk of, I should have known that already. And I'm like, whoa. Maybe you were just reminded of something today. So what did you learn, or what were you reminded of today? The second question is, what will you stop or start practicing in your day-to-day? Why do I put stop, y'all? Because we also need to create conditions where people get to have an opportunity to stop doing something that they've done. We get to realize that we were doing something wrong, and now we're going to actively stop it. And that's part of the repair and loving corrections work. Remember I told you at the beginning, there's some books that I really loved this summer. One of them is Loving Corrections. We have to create more conditions where people can stop as much as people can start. Because I don't know if y'all ever been like strategic planning retreats, or like you're talking about projects, and everything in the US is about how do we innovate and how do we entrepreneur and how do we problem solve and what's the new? I'm like, shit, what are you going to let go to make capacity and space for all this innovation and new and abundance that you're calling in? Y'all with me so far? So we also want to say, is there something that I need to release? Nobody take personal what I'm about to say. But let me just call in like our programming on college campuses. Y'all, there's some programs that we're doing that you got to let that go. Ain't nobody showing up. It's not as helpful anymore. And when you let go of a program, it doesn't mean what are we going to replace it with? It means that now you have something less on your plate so you can do the other things healthier and better. Instead of doing 10 programs in a year, do the 5 and do them in sustainable, healthy, generative, and high quality ways. But now there's 5 and not 10. Is this resonating with y'all? Now you know why I put stop and not just start? Beautiful. And then lastly is, who do you want to share about your experiences today with? Why do I land in that question? How many of y'all have at least one friend that today's exercises and learnings would have been helpful with? Raise your hand or otherwise signified. Look around this room. All of you are thinking about one person, at least one person. Call them in. Who do you want to have this conversation with, and practice the healthiest way of having that conversation with them? Don't pop off on them and be like, yo, you need to learn. Energy, scold talk. Exactly. I'm so happy that translated. Okay. Look at your partner who's going to be your dyad for the final dyad of the day. And then I'm going to give you your 2 minutes, and all that kind of good stuff. Because it's the end of the day, y'all, when you partner with your person, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and then I'm going to give you 2 minutes to switch. And then I'm going to give you an extra 2 minutes at the end so you can talk with each other. Is that okay? So you go one, and then both. Okay. Raise your hand. Does anybody need a partner? I saw some people transition out of the room. Is everybody partnered? Notice how the word is partner, not triad. If there's 3 of you, that's not what we're going for. It should just be one person. Who's in a triad right now? Raise your hand if you're in a triad. Can I get you from the back over here in the front? And then any other triads? Okay, cool. Y'all trying to be real slick, you see? Okay, here we go. First 2 minutes. I trust y'all. Who wants to go first? Who's excited to go first? Let the excitement take over and you go first. 3, 2, 1, begin. If you can hear my voice, that's time. I'm going to ask y'all to start wrapping up and bring it back. Please address your partner and say, thank you so much for being my partner in this final exercise of the day. Give them a high five, a hip bump, a bow, whatever it is that you want to do. Thank you. All right, y'all. Let's bring it back. Do we have any folks in the space that are fellow nerds of neuroscience? Any of y'all just randomly read neuroscience or like to learn about the brain and like all that kind of stuff? If y'all are not nerds of neuroscience, that's totally fine. But this weekend, I'm gonna invite you to at some point just Google or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever place that you like to go for your learning, or YouTube. Learn the effects that gratitude and experiences of gratitude have on your brain. That's all I'm going to say. There's a reason why every time that I practice dyads, I always close with saying, thank you for sharing and thank you for listening, and some kind of a somatic exchange. Our bodies need to get rewired to experience more gratitude here. Because oftentimes when you see people's like staff experience surveys or like, like that kind of like institutional score, there's a sense of like, no one cares about me. I don't feel valued in the workspace. Does that make sense? I'm not saying here, in the ether of going to work, okay? So the way to intervene is to show up with more gratitude with each other and to not take for granted experiences that we are having. And that your body feels equal gratitude from being heard or listened to as much as sharing. Y'all with me? That's why we say gratitude. And the somatic exercise is because your body's being coded with that gratitude, acknowledge that that experience was for you. It wasn't just an external transactional experience. Y'all with me so far? Beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna do sections to see what came up for you all. You can say something that you learned today, something that you're going to start or stop, or don't talk about people. Don't say which people. Just what you learned today or start or stop. Does that sound good? Because we don't even know the homie that you're talking about. Unless they're in here, that would be awkward. Everybody ready? Here we go. We're going to do reverse order. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So somebody over there that would like to share? No wrong answers. Just whatever came up. Something that you learned, something that you want to stop, or something that you want to start. At the mic, please. Yes. One mic, one diva. Yay. And then can I have my second section here? Can we start having somebody move to the microphone? Third section here, somebody start moving to the microphone. And then fourth section here, somebody start moving to the microphone. That way we just like flow, if that's okay with folks. Go ahead.
All right, so I was sharing with my partner that something that I want to start practicing is that I want to look for more opportunities to find spaces where we can practice, because I think a lot of times, like myself and like my peers, we're afraid that we're gonna say the wrong thing, And, you'll never learn how to say the right thing if you're not corrected in a space where like, people will show grace to you. Yeah, so that's what I'm planning on doing.
Love
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I volunteer as tribute, but my thoughts might be a little jumbled because we have so many good thoughts going on
It's okay.
in our conversation. So one of the main point that came up that we shared between both of us was that the structure of taking turns to share our thoughts was actually a challenge in itself, because you're practicing active listening, and while you might share the same thought and you wanted to jump in and be like, I think that too, because XYZ, you're actually kind of hindering and stopping the other person from sharing their thoughts. But sometimes that challenge of like, man, if I don't say it right now, I'm going to forget it, because I'm also trying to run the thoughts in my head, but then inadvertently I'm not listening to the other person anymore. So it was an active challenge that we shared. And the second part was that we were talking about, I was saying how I really appreciate my partners always kind of being vulnerable and transparent. He has no problem with sharing that, oh, I actually didn't read the meeting notes at all, or I didn't know what we were talking about. What were we talking about? Just being very, very transparent and honest. And I and I shared this thought of like what you brought up, that you're like, if you're always trying to be perfect, then you're not practicing. I had this thought of like, whatever comes out of my mouth must be perfect. I better show up as I've already taken the notes, I've already read everything, but nobody is perfect. And so he was sharing that a lot of that may have come from how the society perceived women, and that we didn't have a voice. So now that we have a voice, we must always come up 100%. And that kind of inadvertently stops us from sharing what we truly want to say when we're not sure, when we're not confident, when we feel vulnerable.
Mhm. What's coming up here? Anybody want to go up to the microphone? Go.
Sure, nobody? Okay. For me, what I want to speak to is I have the literal honor to provide supervision to a lot of student workers. And that is something that I value the most, a part of my role at the college. And days are busy. I have an Outlook invite reminding me to have conversations with each of them. And a lot of times I'm sad to say that that is just dismissed because I'm working on something and I have to get the check boxes done, those compliance things, right? So today I'm going to make sure that I start practicing, not dismissing those, and instead have actual one-on-one meetings with these students. Instead of saying, talk to a student, I'm gonna like make a meeting with each of them so that it's harder to just dismiss because it's an appointment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mike, for free? Anybody?
Hi. Okay, so what my partner and I talked about. Well, okay. So this is my experience. I know you kind of said not to talk about anybody outside, of me, but this is kind of an experience that it like really touched for me when you talked about your parents.
Yeah.
It was more of just like the practice spaces. Like I feel like growing up, I had this mindset that you know, my parents' mindset is like fixed. They, had decades of like this like ingrained in their brains. That's how they act, that's how they think. It's not, I can't change that, but it's really nice learning. Like it feels like I changed my entire mindset, like learning that it's possible to change mindsets. It's possible to, having these practice areas and practice like environments that empowers us, me and my parents, to be able to like have this open communication with each other. I think also just this mindset that I've been having all of my life, just thinking that they're fixed in what they think. It kind of, I guess, like to an extent, alienates them from me. It kind of pushes me away from them. It's like I'm seeing them, for their flaws and not for, their love for me, or not for their ability to change. I have something that me and my partner talked about, is that we have this tendency to, uh, be graceful with ourselves, but, be punitive and like, I guess, like negative when it comes to other people's actions. Like we see someone messing up and we don't give them grace, but we give the same due grace to us, right? So I think I'm definitely gonna start practicing gracefulness with my parents, with people around me. Having these practice spaces is literally structuring grace and communication with each other. So being able to understand that, they're there and they're trying, that it's not necessarily their fault that a certain mindset, a certain belief system has been ingrained in them for like their entire lives. And I feel like transferring that to like my work and how I relate to other people, it's like having a space, having like, I guess, like meeting people where they are, kind of understanding that everyone has their own path, has their own understanding of life, and that, being graceful with one another is like the first step to communicating and changing, and aligning yourself with other people. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you for opening that up, because it really changed the way that I think about my parents and my life. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Raise your hands or otherwise signify, whatever is accessible to you. How many of you all today heard something from someone that resonated with you? Raise your hand or otherwise signify. Look around this room. Put your hands down. How many of you all shared something with someone that felt either validating or affirming because you shared it with somebody? Raise your hand. Look around this room. Put your hands down. I am unapologetically here with a very biased belief that by the time that I'm done working in higher education, I want to contribute to rewiring the culture and the way that we're treating each other in higher education. Not just the work that we're doing. The work that we're doing is important, yes. But we got to be the generation that is not just asking ourselves what work needs to get done, but how do we need to do the work? Because there's no point, y'all, to having more people in the different positions of our institutions from different intersectional backgrounds if we're just getting into those roles and sustaining the culture of harm and oppression in those roles. Because now the people that are causing harm start to look like us and feel like us and sound like us. And now we have forfeited our agency to change the culture and the trajectory of these environments. Y'all with me so far? That's what this whole thing is about, is to call you back in. And I love being invited to be here with you all, because y'all invited me because one person or multiple people saw me in San Diego in a different space, and you invited me here. I'm sharing that because I wonder how many of you all have people that you want to invite here, and how many of you all are accepting invitations to go somewhere and be of service somewhere else. Does that make sense to folks? And that you're doing that in sustainable ways. That's why, to me, was such a gift to be here with you all, to specifically have a conversation around disability justice, healing justice, and transformative justice in ways that I hope felt not just accessible, but most importantly, authentic to you. If it doesn't feel authentic, you're not going to be willing to play and experiment on the other side of this. Y'all with me so far? Where's it? Here it is. This is what I like to close with. all of you know exactly what you need to do to start playing and practicing whatever it is that you're going to opt into, either disability justice, healing justice, transformative justice. And y'all, if those frameworks do not make sense to you and you don't like that language or that approach, find whatever does work for you. Does that make sense to y'all? There's a universal understanding that the reason why we are playing with these concepts really comes down to, are we embodying dignity and are we making sure that people are experiencing a sense of belonging? I know that right now, dignity and belonging is not the cup of tea of the White House and the federal government and like all that kind of stuff. That's okay. Humans are fascinating like that. Trump season 2 is so short. The next one is going to be a Democrat. The next one, I don't know what color of the rainbow. I don't care. But if you're forfeiting your agency to decide how you're going to show up according to mainstream politics, oh my God, that's exhausting. That makes no sense for anybody. But if I ask you today in the morning, did you do what you needed to do to have the capacity for your day? At the midday, did you do what you needed to do for your capacity? And at the end of the day, are you going to do what you need to do so that you experience more dignity and belonging and the people around you experience more dignity and belonging? That feels more accessible. Does that make sense, y'all? Because as soon as we start talking about anything other than that, it gets real messy and we get in each other's ways. So I hope this landed for folks in a way that you can embrace it in that manner. I say that to say, I hope that you give yourself permission to do the things. I don't know what your things are, but I hope that you give permission to do them. Does that make sense to folks? For me, the way that I model permission giving to myself is, I'm a nerd and I love books, but I can't just be reading so much like nonfiction and history and heavy and dense stuff. I have to give myself permission to read some like fantasy and some sci-fi and some stuff that gives me a break from the world. Does that make sense to y'all? So for me is, I started asking my friends, what are your recommendations? So I just finished reading the trilogy of Mistborn, which I had never heard about, changed my life. I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. I would have never read that book if I hadn't listened to some random recommendation from one of my friends who I didn't even know they read fantasy. But I just sent a message to the two friends, and I have like 100 books in my to read this year, which I'm not going to read 100 books this year. But I got some books to read. Y'all with me so far? Some joy, some accessible practice. So because I can't always carry a book, it's an audiobook. So if I'm making my way through the airport or doing groceries or folding laundry, I'm listening to a book. Y'all with me? The second one was, I needed to find a way to establish a relationship with my cousins without the messiness of my mom and her generation impacting those relationships. The tias don't talk to each other. I don't give a shit. That's my cousin didn't do anything. Why don't I have a relationship with my cousin? So every week I call a different cousin. I have 38 cousins. It's great because within a month I talk to them at least once. Does that make sense to y'all? Now we got relationships. Last year for the first time we did a cousin trip. It was amazing. And now their babies call me tío. I had never been a tío before. Being an uncle is a unique identity. You know what I'm saying? You get all the chisme from them that you would never heard from them. It's fantastic. And then the third one is, whoever the people in your life that you love the most and they love you, was that clear for you all? Whoever the people in your life that you love the most and they love you, do you know what their dreams are? Do you know what their goals are? And can you help them realize one of them every year? Just one. My practice last year was to help my dad get to Japan, take his 8th degree black belt exam, and have that life experience for him. So we went to Japan. We did 2 weeks in Japan. We got our butts kicked. We kicked some butt. We ate a lot of sushi. Well, I did. He doesn't like sushi. That was so weird to me. But we're not judging our parents. And he got an 8th degree black belt, right? For the rest of my life, my dad will never be able to say, man, my son, when he got those degrees, he got a job, he's making money, and he never asked his dad what his dad wanted to do with him. Does that make sense, y'all? Those were the permissions that I needed to give myself. Notice how none of them are work-related. Is that clear for y'all? Because the more fulfilled and the more healthy and the more energized that you are in your personal lives, then you show up here in a community of people that are about that life and you make things happen. Does that resonate with folks? Y'all with me so far? This is me inviting you all to be intentional about your healthiest experience, generating your capacity, and reminding ourselves it is a privilege for us to be in public higher education. And it is a privilege to have access to incredible nerds and human beings. And we get to do amazing things together if we commit to that experience. Thank you all so much for inviting me today. I hope this was helpful. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
So just quickly, as we come to a close, again, speaking of gratitude, I first and foremost, Ruben, I want to thank you. We, on behalf of IVC, want to thank you for sharing just your profound insights and for reminding us to connect with one another as human beings and not just by our titles. Because that's what I think happened and I experienced in the last 4 hours, just connecting with our fellow humans. I also want to give a huge thank you to our students. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. Your perspective, your voice really allowed us to understand you and helped us be better. And it's one thing I love about working at IVC is we strive to be better. And I am so grateful for sharing your vulnerability with us because that showed your courage and allowed us to understand you better. So thank you so much for that. I also want to thank Maria, our DSPS director, our fabulous colleagues, faculty and staff in the DSPS office, Vanessa, and everyone else. I'm sorry I'm forgetting names in my emotional state. Just for your unwavering dedication to our DSPS program and our students, and for teaching all of us on how to work with this fabulous group of students that call IVC their home. I also want to, of course, thank IT. I walked in there a couple of times in a little bit of a panic, but you all were amazing and fabulous. Thank you so much. And for all of you for coming here to this event today, it has just been a powerful collaboration from many people, but you spend the time here to come together, have conversations with one another, and I'm hopeful that we can continue having those conversations in our departments. And we will now be moving on to lunch. So thank you again and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.